Hi, my man. It looks like we are live on Facebook. My name is Dr. Tom Rolley, and I'm joined today by my good friend, TJ Frank. How you doing, buddy?
I'm well, thank you, Tom. Aloha, good to see you.
And you. Hey, look, we are live on the Bhaktiatsu Facebook page, and right now, I feel like we should open up with what is Bhaktiatsu? I mean, when this page is called Bhaktiatsu, what is this technique, and how can it help us at this time?
Right on. Well, as an introduction, my name's TJ Frank. I'm a licensed acupuncturist, master of Chinese medicine and Oriental medicine. My practice primarily is within Chinese medicine as a body worker. So I use a method called Shiatsu, which is a massage system based on the meridians, which are bands of flesh in the body that connect to the organs. And it's a system of medicine that works on the organs through these bands of flesh that run through the body. There's only 12 of them. And that's what we call the meridians in Chinese medicine. As an acupuncturist, I'm also trained in the acupoints and how to stimulate acupoints to affect the organs that the meridians connect to. Now, these systems of meridians and organs aren't just lumps of clay or inert flesh. They respond to how we think and feel in the world. And so it's a living organism that behaves in syncytium to our thoughts. Psychologically, emotionally, if we feel something, an organ can either expand or contract. In the case of the lungs, which is apropos now with the coronavirus pandemic, it's a lung condition, and the lungs can either collapse to certain thoughts or broaden with other thoughts or movements or massage methods. So Bhaktiatsu as a field is my own style of doing shiatsu. As a person in the world, I'm a practitioner of Bhakti Yoga. And Bhakti Yoga is a method of getting the emotions lined up in such a way that it inspires or invokes passion or devotion in a person. The word Bhakti means devotion or love or passion. And Bhaktiatsu is a method of using the meridians to harmonize the emotions to get a person to a sense of love within themselves or others. So that's Bhaktiatsu as a whole. Now, the part of Bhaktiatsu that's useful in the coronavirus is quite simply using the lung meridian and teaching people how to stretch the lung meridian, how to massage the lung meridian, how to exercise the lungs, and all sorts of movement methods to help fortify their lungs so that they're not going to get as easily invaded by potentially coronavirus or any other bacteria for that, or virus for that matter. And potentially, if they should get infected, a way that they can do self-care regimens at home to potentially mitigate their symptomology so that they heal easier and potentially relieve a burden on the Western medical system who potentially might already be inundated with people who are ill. So Bhaktiatsu can help people stay healthy and then become healthier. To relieve the system.
I mean, that's really the issue that we've got right now, is that we've got, as I see it, we've got a lot of the Western societies have, or really the world, have social isolation. This has been implemented heavily across the globe. It's had impacts on many, many people. Everyone's experiencing right now. And then there's a gap through to intensive care units. And at least here in Australia, we have limited number of ICU beds. There's only, I think, they're rapidly trying to ramp it up, but it's not designed for tens of thousands of people to get sick. And it looks like the numbers that I'm kind of aware of, roughly 20% of people who are getting this are ending up in hospital, and a good chunk of those are going to ICU, and we're risking overloading the system. This is what's happened in Italy. And so I feel like if you've got some insights into those two things, where we can either not have so many people get sick in the first place, and then those that do, not so many go to ICU, then that would be extremely helpful right now. What are you recommending? I mean, what are we looking at in terms of coronavirus as the way that you would see it, and then what do I do?
Well, From a Chinese medicine perspective, we see these type of invasions from the outside as same as you would in the West with a bacteria or virus coming into the body, a virus in this case. Being that it creates this huge fever, and the reports I'm getting from most people is it's worsened with heat therapies, is that it's a heat invasion. Because if we would call it an external wind heat invasion. It's from the outside. It comes in, the wind component is that it comes in and then it's heat. It creates fever and it's worse with heat. Therefore, the treatment principle would be fortify the exterior, make the person's immune system stronger, clear heat from the lungs and release wind, protect people from wind. So that would be the Chinese medicine treatment principle. Now, once it invades into the lungs, it's a whole nother thing. This thing's pernicious. It's cooking the phlegm down into like cement and blocking the lungs so people can't breathe. And then from there, it's getting into the heart. And there's all sorts of cardiovascular secondary infections, as I understand, taking people out as well. And the Chinese medicine has this theory called the 4 stages of febrile infection, warm disease, the treaty on warm disease. In particular, my Chinese master, Guohu Liu, wrote a book, a paramount book on the subject matter and the treaty of warm disease. And it specifies that after the lung, it gets to the blood level and affect the heart. What I'm saying here is, in regard to this particular pandemic, the treatment would be dependent on which level the invader has invaded to. The best, of course, is to try to protect the body from getting invaded in the first place. And I said boost the immune. What I mean by that is sleep well, eat well, rest well, build one's energy. Now's not the time to eat potato chips, drink beer, and sloth on the sofa and watch TV and lock oneself up into fear, because that's going to affect the physiology of the human. So keeping optimistic and positive and outdoor and creative and cleaning one's house and doing art projects and eating well and napping and doing whatever we can to boost ourselves, including cardiovascular, exercise bikes. The people I know with exercise bikes seem to be faring this quarantine period quite well in comparison to others I've been observing that are relying more on alcohol, for instance. As I don't want to target any particular community because all things are fine, particularly to moderation. But there's different behaviors we can use that might be better or worse.
Okay, so these are relatively simple, like this is not any Chinese medical kind of techniques right now. This is just it is Chinese.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is Chinese, but it's Western too.
It's Western
boost
too, yeah.
your immune system, boost your Qi. There's lots of things. We all know what we do that makes our energy feel better or worse, or more full or more hollow. Once that's done, the more Chinese things that we can do as far as Oriental medicine would be Qi Gong. Doing active breathing and stretching exercises of all sorts of different sorts to release and open our lungs and hold our lungs at peak inhalation with our rib cage expanded as long as we can, and then exhale as much as we can with the rib cage compressed, and just really start working on expanding the lungs and getting them moving, keeping the blood flow moving through. And then as well, self-stimulation of acupoints that have been shown are indicated to boost the strength of the lungs. Lung 9, lung 1, bladder 13. Some of these acupoints, just as we're hanging out, just start stimulating. And then I was thinking about this subject as well, even though this is a lung-related condition. From the people I've been interacting with, people are having different fallouts to the stress that we're under. Some people that are more predominant in fear are having much more bladder kidney things. People that are more about indecision and plan are having more liver gallbladder problems. People that are more worried about nourishment, that are having a hard time performing in the world, are afraid if they don't perform, they can't get the nourishment they desire, and they're having stomach spleen issues. So there are each and every case different as far as people understanding what organ systems gone awry and what type of thoughts, what type of food, what type of stretches, what type of acupoints should be used to help support them. That's where something like Bhaktiatsu comes in, where it's the full system of all 12 meridians. How do you know which one the person is in, and how do you know to support them in that meridian? For the case of coronavirus, for right now, in the simple, just to get the information to the masses, work on your lungs, prepare your lungs, prepare your lungs. I I hear all sorts. I mean, these, 50 to 70% potential exposure rate in communities. If that's the
I've
case,
heard that as well.
if
Yeah,
that's the
it's
case, hey,
coming.
then if there's a 50% chance, I think there's a 50% chance you're gonna win the lottery. Would you buy the ticket?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, so if
So
I know that it's coming, I mean, because this, even though we've gone to social isolation, it may still spread. It seems like it's got longevity. My sister wrote to me and said, why is this thing lasting so long? Why isn't it like, say, for instance, like a virus like HIV, that as soon as it's outside the body, it just degrades and falls apart? And it seems like the actual structure's pretty resilient, like some surfaces, many hours, and so can come through. And to me, like it is important. I'm curious about how you see these lung stretches responding against the infectious agent. Like, for comparison, let's say that there's someone who hasn't done anything, their lungs are kind of like not being used, they're kind of, they're not stretched out. How does that person go when an influx of the virus comes in versus someone who has been doing some form of lung stretching exercise, Qigong?
I believe, based on what I'm hearing your question, my anticipation would be those that have been doing a lot of exercises in advance would be able to fight the pathogen more effectively because they've already established greater elasticity of the tissue. They've dealt with previous closures. If somebody's already got a whole bunch of self-worth and grief and in the lungs, when it comes in, they're already contracted. But if they've done a whole bunch of work, they have more space before it gets to that total bilateral pneumonia goo collapse. If it's already closed down, it's not as far to go closed. So I would anticipate by holding it open. Now, there's another way that your question, I thought, might be coming across as you began to ask it, and that would be, would these exercises be the same application and effect previous to exposure or after exposure? That's a different question.
Well, we've covered the first one to a degree. Let's go to that question, because that is, that's getting into that protection versus, hey, it gets in, how do I not end up in ICU?
For these heavy coughs and such, for them to go into these big crane moves sometimes is way too much. And in which case, for somebody who's really just learning how to do the acupressure and then doing that, the lung meridian of all meridians, in my experience, responds so well to touch. Really does. It's astounding just working it. People take all sorts of sighs and coughs and sneezes and rub their nose and all these lung things. So that type of stuff, as far as the lung meridian goes from the tip of the thumb down the inside of the bone, just inside the inside of the bone, right along the where are we going here? The outside of the bicep, up to the corner of the lung, where the muscles from the chest come up to the bones, up in the shoulder. I'm using layman terms, and just so that it's most acceptable to everybody. It's the trough just inside the radius. It goes just lateral to the biceps tendon and the antecubital fossa to the pectoral-dectoral triangle at the coracoid process. So for those that are more anatomically inclined, that's the lung meridian. So for people that are infected, they can still do the inhale, hold to peak inhale, exhale, hold to peak exhale. I was going to mention, I've treated so many thousands of people. And I've taken note with professional voice artists and professional voice musicians, both, have often unsolicited said, hey, the most important thing I do in my practice for my lungs is hold a peak inhale and hold a peak exhale. And after the first couple, I'm like, okay, whatever. But after several more, I'm like, okay, there must be something to this particular feedback. So I use that as a lung exercise for myself. That can still be used for infected people. Hold a peak inhale, hold a peak exhale. If they can get to the point of stretching the arms are connected to the ribs are connected to the lungs. So as you lift the arm, it lifts the rib, expands the lung. The bottom of the lungs attached to the ligamentum nuchae, to the umbilical ligament, to the pubic tubercles. So the bottom of the lung attaches to the pelvis. So opening up the belly at the same time does like a 3-point stretch on the lungs. Do it with your whole mouth. Yes, you can see the breath of the list. It's massive.
It's great. That's good. Yeah, right. I mean, that's clearly, if you're watching this, I mean, try that now. I mean, let's say that you're not in hospital, but you're actually just watching this at home. Can you
Yeah.
run me through how to do that stretch just one more time, and I'll
Just
follow along?
thumbs up like big old wings and stick your belly out. Inhale through your nose. Hold the peak exhale as long as you can, and then exhale down.
Ooh.
Hold it. Hold the peak exhale. Just still comfort. Don't pass out. And then, so this is just very basic crane Qi Gong, you know. So this type of stuff can be applied before or after, but it really depends on the person's body response. Once they're too far gone, make no mistake, Chinese medicine's wonderful in an augment situation, but by and large, Western medicine is the way to go. If you have an advanced condition that you might suspect is coronavirus, seek proper medical attention and help. If they say you got to go home and wait it out, now we got some stuff to help you with.
Yeah, look, I mean, to me, the power of ICU is phenomenal. I mean, to be able to basically force the air in so they can breathe, so they can survive, they can buy more time for their body to get this thing out. I mean, it is phenomenal.
You know, another trick that's great, the nasal sphincter muscles dilate the nares, which are connected to the bronchi, to the bronchial, to the lungs. So through continuation of action, through deep inhale across the nose, by stimulating that, has a tremendous just dilation of the whole. It's not bronchial dilation; it's the whole lung opens up. Sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to get that out there too. As far as method deployed,
I mean, this has got to be good for like nasal sinusitis and other.
Broader than coronavirus. Yeah, asthma. Yeah. Bronchitis, chronic bronchitis, COPDs, all sorts of different stuff.
Perfect. All right, let's go to the lung meridian. I mean, you mentioned it, you ran through it. How do I find it on myself, and what does it feel like? How do I know this thing exists? And you're just, you know, Chinese medicine, you know, it's a line on the body. They're making it all up. You know, how do I find this thing?
How do you know it exists comes mostly through practice and personal experience within your own self of having it done and starting to cough and saying, oh my God, this has some connection. Until then, just assume that it does exist, and I'll show you where it is. If you put your hand in this little soft spot inside the deltoid, outside the pecs, it feels kind of spongy.
Yep.
So the texture of the meridian is going to have that same sponginess the whole way down. It goes right in front of the deltoid of the shoulder muscle, and then it goes lateral to the bicep, and it's spongy the whole way. And then it goes through the elbow space, and then it goes just inside the forearm bone, and it's spongy the whole way down. If the texture of the meridian, because it's a continuation of fascia from the organ itself, quite often has a very similar tactile sense to the organ. The organ and the meridian often feel the same way. So that's where the lung meridian is. So people just hanging out in isolation can just start massaging this.
Right.
They're
okay.
hanging out anyway. And if they do with some breath work at the same time, and then if they get proper counsel from an herbalist and get some ideas on herbs that loosen the phlegm and help them loosen up the phlegm, we can have some really significant augmentative therapy that in no means supersedes Western medicine, but can be certainly complementary to people that are being sent home to take care on their own, and potentially prophylactically to stop the cascade from getting too far to the ICU. That's the meridian. Helpful. The main acupoints, lung 1 opens the lung.
I take it that's lung 1 that you're pointing at right now.
Yeah, so it's that you go to that same soft spot that we were before, but roll over the muscle itself where the pec muscles come in. It's going to be a bit achy for most people.
So am I down here? Like I can feel this ropey kind of thing.
That's
lung 1. Like it's not. That's no longer soft.
As a massage, as an acupuncturist, we might have a debate to the locale. But as a massage therapist, as a body worker, as a shiatsu practitioner, that's where I would recommend doing acupressure for this one.
Okay, and what am I doing with acupressure? Hang on, am I just?
You're just drilling. Thank you. Great question. You're just poking at it as you breathe. Don't forget to breathe. This is a lung thing. You got to breathe.
All right.
You see, and I'm in Hawaii. That's Haleakala behind me. She's the one that does. You know. In any case, that's Haleakala. And the Hawaiians are all about aloha, And aloha is breathing with the breath of ha, the breath of life, or the breath of spirit. They say ha is the breath of life. And if you imagine getting all that you ever wanted in life, where everything was just perfect and easy, you might say, ha. That's the ha we're talking about. So if you drill in here, it might help with the nerves. It could help with the kidneys, with the catecholamines, the blood pressure, the anxiety, that breath, that one. So that's the acupressure. Massage it. The way we move energy is physically. There's 3 ways to move energy. Qi Gong is the movement of energy. Qi means energy, Gong means work. Energy work, or moving your energy, which is what I'm teaching you in code, but regardless. The way to move energy is through physical movement, breath movement, and intentional awareness. What you're thinking about also affects the movement of energy. The energy goes where the mind goes, the energy follows. In any case, so the thought here would be ha, 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 ha. So that'd be the acupressure for lung 1. And then lung 5 is the antecubital fossa, the elbow crease. You'll feel a thick tendon. Go out with your hand down, go outward towards your thumb. There's a hollow. So that's lung 5.
Okay, right. I went the wrong way. Okay, you got to go towards the thumb.
So that one clears internal excess from the organ proper. The functionality of an acupoint is to clear internal excess from the organ proper, from whatever organ meridian you're on. In this case, it's lung. So you can imagine, there you go, do the breath.
Mine's a little sore.
And for people with these conditions, it's going to be even more sore.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if it's bad.
Oh, dude. Yeah. I love Hawaii.
Yeah, so.
Nice little interlude. Hey, look, if you're watching, you got some questions, type them up in wherever you can, and we'll see if we can get to those.
My batteries are fading and the light's getting dark.
All right.
This is that part of energy I was saying, to keep one's energy, to recognize when we're tired, to stop. My dog's barking at an owl or something. To recognize when one energy is getting weak and taking honor of that. Now's the time, for the first time for a lot of us that have worked really hard in Western society and culture for a long time, to rest. I recommend we do that to keep our energy strong. So as I say, my batteries are getting low.
Beautiful.
It's metaphorical. So are there questions out there by chance?
Well, before we get there, if you do like this, then tune in again next couple of days. We'll have some more info. And if you want to be part of the COVID-19 masterclass, you're going to be teaching that this Friday and Saturday, 3:30 Hawaii. I think that's 6:30 Pacific and 9:30 Eastern. If you're interested in that, you want to go on the wait list, then head over to bhaktiatsu.com and pop in your email, pop in your name there, and there's an opportunity to join in that, where we'll have some more in-depth experiences there. All right, people just saying thank you. You got to do a white crane tutorial.
Yes, that's going to be part of the master class for sure, is a full great white crane. I'm a licensed instructor in that, from the Liu lineage. Yeah, I get all excited about that. I've been wanting to get this form out for so long. I'm so grateful that people are now interested in lung work, because okay, great, go ahead, keep going. I'm all excited about that.
All right. Okay, well, I tell you what, why don't we frame this up in a bit of a revision about where we've been so far. We've kind of come from an introduction to Bhaktiatsu through the COVID-19, and then looked at how to treat this thing. What if I'm just tuning in for a minute and I'm just like, what am I getting here? What am I taking away from this thing?
For the masterclass that we're offering this weekend?
Not the masterclass. No. Just from what we've discussed tonight. Yeah, what we've covered.
Just an understanding that there's something that people can do. That we're not just empowered, just waiting for an onslaught to happen. That we can, it's a statistics game. You can slide yourself on the bell curve if you get demolished, if you're in the middle, or if you're on the tip end. Like, we can be proactive in our health. I want to help people be proactive in their health.
That's fantastic. I mean, that in itself is extremely beneficial to hear, that it is possible to move towards good health, to come in and both protect and prevent against this thing. And if enough people, we can shift the curve, benefits others. I'm excited for that takeaway. I mean, my big one and the reminder was the breath of Ha. I mean, that is just, that is a beautiful gift from Hawaii. She's looking lovely.
See, she's got a lay. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm over here in Byron Bay. It's not so bad, but it's still beautiful to see that view. All right. They're excited. People are excited for this, brother. Thank you for your gifts to the world. Great White Crane, I think it's been a year, 18 months, something like that. For me, it is a sensational form, unbelievable. Really, really, really love it. And I've been pretty much doing that, 5 or 6 days a week for the last.
You can look it up on lingwei.org. Is Madame Liu He's my Qi Gong Master's webpage.
Beautiful. Mate, it sounds like you're getting called there by Lucky Dog. Thank you so much for today. Extremely beneficial.
So many people there's good things to what's going on. I'm seeing families walk together and talk like I haven't seen in decades. People are moving like I remember it in the 1970s, before computers and cell phones. There are some good things happening. So please, everybody, keep focused on the positive. Keep on the light. Keep the lungs moving. Let's move this thing in a good direction. Let's open ourselves up. Honor the social isolation. Help our neighbors. Provide food for friends. We'll get through this. Keep the breath open.
My friend, that is a beautiful note to end on. I look forward to seeing you soon for further episodes like this. And as I said, if you are interested in the masterclass, head over to bhaktiatsu.com now. Brother, look forward to seeing you soon. Aloha, and until next time.